Thank you for joining me this evening, everyone. And please bear with me because I haven't done a Facebook Live before. So this technology is new to me, but I'm really looking forward to being able to talk a little bit about this topic and share about grounding and protection with you guys. Um, some of them, some of you, I'm sure, has already touched on this topic before, so perhaps in great depth or perhaps just a little bit before. And some of you, maybe this is a real introduction for you. So I'm going to kind of go from the foundation here because I'll have all backgrounds, people that haven't really touched on these topics or learnt anything about these topics before. So I want to kind of really introduce the topic and build on it, I guess. Um, First of all, just a little bit about myself. So my name's Amanda Godfrey, and I actually started Mystical Dragon back 15 years ago now. And for myself, I have seen spirit and had a lot of psychic experiences my whole life. Um, I, I can remember even from primary school seeing things at primary school. I remember seeing my granddad not long after he passed away, and even though I hadn't seen him for quite a few weeks because he'd been really sick in hospital, and my parents didn't want to take me to hospital to see him like that. Um, when I saw him, I could describe the pajamas that he was wearing apparently when he passed away. So I've had experiences like that my whole life, and I have kind of been on that journey to really discover, I suppose, to discover more about it and what it meant and how to understand it better, and also to be able to help myself for things like I've also had terrible sleep for a lot of my life. Like I've been woken up constantly. Or when I was very young, I remember sleeping under the doona, sleeping under the covers because I was frightened of the things that I could see. Early on, I didn't know if it was good, bad, or indifferent. So, you don't know. All you know is you can see things, and it's scary stuff because other people don't seem to see these things. So I kind of was on a journey quite early in my life trying to understand these things and be able to cope with these things, and I suppose find better ways to do things. So for me, that's where finding out about doing things like grounding and doing things like psychic protection, that kind of started for me early on. Um, I can't say that I necessarily found those answers early on for myself. It was quite a journey for me. Um, but I have been able to find a lot of answers, and now I do sleep a lot better. And there's a lot of things that I do. I can look back on and go, oh, I kind of learnt all the hard ways and the tough ways, and maybe not the best ways, but I've come to the really good ways, which I want to talk to you guys about tonight. So um, there's two aspects that I want to talk about tonight. There is being able to ground ourselves, which I really feel when we ground ourselves and when we understand how to ground ourselves, and even just get that trigger to go, oh, I need to go ground myself, I need to do that, and go do it. We help ourselves by calming and centering ourselves. So it's a way that we can really help to release a lot of stress and to kind of come back into center. Um, it is also it's also really important because we are here to function in this mundane level. It's not just all about being psychic and being really connected. Part of that is also being grounded enough to be able to function in our mundane world as well, and do the more practical things as well. Because if we're constantly off with our guides and with loved ones in spirit and the dragons and all these other energies, it's really hard to function and do the normal day-to-day stuff in our world as well. So it is really important to know how to ground ourselves, especially for those two big reasons. So some obvious ways for us to ground ourselves is obviously to go get our feet on the ground. So being able to take our shoes off, run around bare feet, actually go out and put our feet on the ground, which I know at the moment we're not in the best weather here in Australia with the cold weather. But if you can actually get your feet on the ground, it is obviously really ideal to help us with grounding and really getting that earth connection. Because one of the things we don't do a lot of, I find, especially in Our modern world, our modern society these days is we wear our shoes a lot, we're inside a lot, we're even in buildings that are like got cement floors, and there's not a lot of that natural earth connection for us that we're triggered to do on a day-to-day level. So stopping and I love to run around barefoot. So stopping to do that is really ideal. Or go for a walk or sit outside in the garden, even if you're not barefoot, sitting outside in the garden. You don't have to have the best garden in the world for it to be grounding. You just need to be outdoors, essentially, in that fresh air. And whether it's with the sand at the beach or it's with the grass or with the trees, it's just getting out there in that natural environment, which is really great. Or sitting under a tree or leaning up against a tree if you can't really sit on it, having your hand up against a tree, or putting your hand on the ground, on the earth. This is all really grounding things to just stop and really feel that energy and take in some of that energy is super grounding. Now, even when we can't get outside, because it's not always possible, there are things that we can do on an indoor level. So things like perhaps have a salt bath. Salt bath is a really grounding thing that we can do. Add some, perhaps some Himalayan salts or even just some rock salt or something like that to the bath and have a nice soak. That actually also helps to really ground us and bring us back down as well. And we can also utilize grounding crystals too. I love using my crystals. So another way that can help ground us is to perhaps reach for a grounding crystal or a couple of grounding crystals. Um, your more grounding crystals are usually your darker color crystals. So things like your black colored crystals, your brown colored crystals, your red colored crystals, they tend to be the color rays that are your more grounding ones. So your crystals like your black obsidians, your black tourmalines, your smoky quartz crystals, your red garnets, your red jaspers, any of those kinds of crystals are really going to help to ground you as well. So they're great ones to kind of reach for when you really need to kind of center yourself and connect with that stress relieving and that grounding side of things as well. And the more that you play with crystals, the more that you tend to find what are your go-tos that really help you to feel more grounded, more down to earth, and more connected on those levels as well. I also find that green crystals are really good at connecting us to that earth energy too. So you might find that it might be perhaps a green crystal that more calls you because they really can help us in connecting with the elemental world and the trees and the plants and all of those kind of energies too. They are a bit more heart centered, but these days I also find that, we kind of need to be grounded in that heart space too. I feel like that's very important as well. So something worth considering also and perhaps playing with for yourself if you play with crystals as well. So, reaching for crystals is definitely grounding. There's also certain body movements that are really very grounding, like things like yoga and being able to do some stretching or some walking or going for a jog. These can all be really grounding things to be able to do that kind of bring us back down to earth again. Um, for me as well, I find that smudging is also quite grounding. I know for some people they more find that the smudging perhaps connects them more on a spiritual level and brings them more up. Um, I find that it really helps to center and ground me more so than just kind of sending me off somewhere. So smudging is something that you might find that you want to reach for, or a tool that you'd like to do when it comes to looking at what's going to help to ground me, and help to relieve some of that stress and to center me. And of course, there's meditations that we can do as well that assist with our grounding also. So even though, often meditation is something we can do to help connect us to spirit and, to help take us places, we can do meditations that are very focused on grounding ourselves as well. And that can be an easy way to stop and to center. So visualizations like where we see roots that are growing out the bottom of our feet or growing out through our base chakra that's at the base of our spine and sending those roots down into the earth can be really good ways to help to connect and ground us. Or visualizing ourselves perhaps laying on the ground and sinking into the earth and those kind of visualizations and meditations are really great focuses to also help to ground us too. And if stress is a really big thing, and look, there's lots that's going on for us, especially here in Melbourne. You know, lots of people getting really stressed and concerned. So if stress is one of those issues that's going on while you're feeling called to ground, then when you're doing things like those types of meditations, we can actually also set an intent that like the stress is kind of seeping out and we're passing that on to the earth as well, and asking the earth to please transmute that energy for us. And you know, it's a way to help to heal and release some of that stress for us too. And you'll probably find that that would be helpful as well when it comes to meditation and grounding. So there's quite a lot of different ways that we can ground. Like I said, it's not just getting outside and putting our feet on the earth, although that is really ideal if we can. But there are quite a lot of ways that we can ground when we really feel called to. And I really encourage you guys to look at grounding regularly, like make it part of your regular routine, especially if you're feeling like you're getting into the overload. But do try and make it part of your regular routine, because you will find it makes a difference for you. And you might experiment with some of the different ways, and you know, depending on what you're feeling called to do on any given day, you can use some of those different techniques. Or you might find that there's one of them that really works for you that you decide to utilize regularly in your day-to-day life. You know, if you've had to go to work and you come home, it's great to be able to ground yourself once you get home and be able to release some of that stress and whatever's built up from the day before you kind of go into, you know, being at home and being able to be a mum or take on some of those other roles at home as well. The other aspect that I wanted to be able to talk about tonight is also being able to protect ourselves. And psychic protection, I find, is really important. And it's really great to be able to do in combination with grounding ourselves. Because when we ground, it helps for us to release some of the energy that maybe we have gathered up across a day or across weeks if we haven't actually had time to kind of ground and center ourselves properly. But doing regular protection makes a really big difference. And it was one of the key things that I found helped me be able to really start to sleep properly and focus properly. Like it's just made such a massive difference in my life for me when I found effective ways to do psychic protection. And I have done lots of study on psychic protection and seen loads of different methods out there. But there's one key way that I definitely recommend over all the other methods that I've seen out there. And my guides talk to me a lot as well as things kind of develop. So I have experimented with a lot of different psychic protection. And I still come back to this one technique, and I have used it for a lot of years now. And that is using a pyramid for protection. And it's really important for us not just to do protection for ourselves here and there. It's like when we're having a problem that we suddenly start to do some protection or we start to do some grounding. But it's really important to actually incorporate these things into our routine or our life regularly. I talk a lot about doing protection daily, like make it part of your daily routine. And it's something I personally set up, well, I shouldn't say set up, but reinforce my own protection, my own day, personal protection every morning. And I also reinforce my protection, not just for myself personally, but also in my home every night as well. So it is like integrated into my daily routine for me. Having your own protection and reinforcing it regularly, really the more that we work with it, the stronger that protection gets for us. So that's why I say it's best not to just reach for it when we're having a problem. It is something you really want to incorporate regularly and build on regularly, because the more that we work with divinities and dragons and our guides and all of those energies, the stronger that connection becomes. The more that we reinforce whatever method of protection we feel drawn to use, the stronger that level of protection becomes. And so then maybe, you know, if you've always had problems when you go to the supermarket, you know, or the shopping centre, where you're always picking up on a lot of other people's stuff, like I have always done for a long time in my life, the more protection that you do, the more often you do it, you'll find that it's less of an issue when you go because that protection's working really well for you. So you might find it takes a little bit before that protection builds up to that level where you're feeling more happy to go to the supermarket and more happy to go down to the shopping centre. And you might find that you never get to the point that it's just completely comfortable, that you like being around all these people all the time. I'm still not super happy to go do the supermarket shopping when there's loads of people down there, but I'm certainly a lot better than what I was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because of doing my protection regularly. So it really helps us to stop soaking up other people's energy as much. It helps us to stop soaking up energy from environments that we might go to as well. And certainly, if I go somewhere like a hospital, I reinforce my protection before I even go in the hospital, just to help set that intent that, I really don't want to be soaking up these energies if I can, please. So I'm going to reinforce that protection. So, um, the protection that I really recommend is pyramid protection. So I literally visualize myself in a pyramid. I've got a little image here that I have printed to really give you that sense as to what I'm talking about, although you don't have to sit in that same position that she is in the picture. But we are essentially sitting in a pyramid. Now, I originally came across this method. Would have been in my early 20s, and I picked up a book of Judy Hall's, which was specifically on psychic protection. And she had a lot of different techniques that she talked about in that. But the pyramid really jumped out at me at the time. In her book, she actually talked about it being a green pyramid. And I did utilize that for quite a while, but I did still have some problems. And it wasn't till later when I had, I suppose, more of an understanding from my witchcraft path and understanding colours and connections and things like that, and actually was also listening better to my guides, that I realised that green isn't the best colour to use when it comes to our psychic protection. I also learnt a lot with doing studies with Elizabeth Jensen and all my Orset temple healing that I've done. We work with a pyramid in that as well, but in order to help really connect us to our intuition. So my guides have since taught me that we can use this pyramid for protection. We can also set that intent that it is to help us when we're doing any of our psychic work as well. We can reinforce that. And it's also about what colour we reinforce in that also, along with that intent, that will help to amplify. So it will amplify protection when we're purposely setting a colour and setting the intent of protection. It can help to amplify our intuition and our psychic work when we set colours connected to that and we set that intent that that's what we really want to happen. One of the good things about working with the pyramid is it actually works with our chakras. So we not only have the 7 chakras that are in our body, but we actually have chakras that are above our head, and also we have chakras that are below our feet. And our pyramid actually really works with that. So the pyramid point actually connects with what I call like an umbilical cord of energy that connects up from our crown chakra. And so the pyramid actually connects in with that umbilical cord and one of the chakras that's above our head. So we can still be connected while we are protected. One of the early protection methods that I know I used for myself, probably early 20s, that I kind of did the fallback because I got taught. I had a lot of people that shared it with me and talked about it to me, is the bubble of protection, where you literally put yourself in a bubble. And that did work for me for a little while. But the thing that I find is the problem with putting myself in a bubble is you don't have as much of that connection. It's like you seal yourself off and you seal your energies off when we just put ourselves in a bubble. Versus the pyramid actually still keeps us not only protected, but also we're still connected. So I find I can hear my guides really easily. I get a lot of that in the intuitive guidance while I have that protection that's still in place. So that's where I find that the pyramid has kind of been superior over all other methods. And I hear a lot of and over the years, I've heard a lot of other different kinds of protection that people use, some that purposely sends energy back if people are sending negative energy to you, which I don't recommend. Other ones that actually, there's like fiery shields and all kinds of things that people use, which I also don't recommend. It's not about, retaliation. It's not about revenge or sending things back. Yes, people do silly things at times and send us negative energy. They don't necessarily intend for it. Sometimes they do, but they don't always. Sometimes we pick up on stuff inadvertently, or sometimes people get really angry or really upset or really emotional, and that's enough for them to send something that can be really quite harmful or hurtful to us. But they're not intentionally trying to send anything to us. So for me, my intent with protection is always, if there's somebody else's energy being sent to me, it's about grounding that energy and transmuting that energy. It's not about firing it back at people, because I do find that that sort of thing just comes back to us down the track. So it's not about sending things back. It's just simply about taking care of our own energy, and taking care of ourselves instead. So please bear that in mind when you are looking at your own perhaps protection methods that you might consider, whether you decide to adopt the pyramid, which we utilize a lot at Mystical Dragon, and we talk about at Mystical Dragon in quite a few of our classes. And I found many people have found it really very helpful method to be able to use. So when it comes to your pyramid, I mentioned that we set a color as well as our intent. So obviously we set the intent that we want to be protected, but it's also about putting a color in our pyramid. So visualize the color or feel the pyramid around you if you're not very good at visualization, and set that intent as to what you're doing. Why you putting it there. I find that white and green are the two colors to avoid when it comes to using your pyramid for protection. Um, White is a really effective, really great color for many things, especially for healing. It is not so great for protection. It tends to more light us up and make us more visible to energy rather than being protective for us. So literally any color except for white and green are the colors I recommend. I often use gold, or you can use like rainbow colors, or you can literally layer colors if that's what you're feeling you need. So you want maybe some pink around yourself, and you want to do maybe some golds or purples or other colors that really resonate with you. So white and green also because green is a color of fertility, so it actually helps to manifest and grow and create more of whatever green comes into contact with. So if it's coming into contact with negative energy, we really don't want to be growing and helping to create more negative energy that is around us. It's something we want to be more grounding and transmuting. So they're the two colors I avoid as like what I call a top coat. So as whatever color you put as an outside color for your pyramid. Now we can also layer our pyramids as well. So not only put ourselves personally in a pyramid, but you can actually put a pyramid around your home as well. You can put it around the property at home. And one of the things that I found early on that was really helpful is I actually put a pyramid around my bedroom, and I still do this to this day, and I also do it for my son as well. So I put a pyramid of a night around myself, I put one around my bedroom, and I put one around my home. So the one around my bedroom, I set the intent that I don't get visited by spirit, because what I came to discover was the reason I was constantly waking up at night and not sleeping very well is because I was getting lots of visitation of spirit coming to say hello. And because we're very receptive at night, because we have a lot less distractions, and even if you don't know consciously that there's a spirit coming and poking you and kind of going, hello, wake up, hello, you might not see that fully. There's a part of you that's aware of that and is waking up and kind of responding to that. So I started and have done for years now having a pyramid around my bedroom with the intent that my bedroom is a sacred space, and I don't even allow like my grandma in spirit and those kind of energies into my bedroom unless they absolutely have to come in. I kind of set time where they can talk to me in the daytime, so that I can actually sleep. And since I started having that intent, I find that I sleep a lot better. And I also have found that my son has a tendency to wake up to spirit as well. So I've started doing it around his bedroom as well. And he is a little bit more settled since I've started to do that too. So it's really important that kids start to learn protection as well, because I find kids are really sensitive to these energies too. So it is worth not only learning grounding and protecting for ourselves, but if you have kids, it's worth starting to incorporate some of these techniques for them. And when they're quite young, we might need to do those techniques for them or to help facilitate that for them. But as they get a little bit older, it's great to be able to kind of get them starting to do some of these things for themselves as well. As part of our protection too, I certainly call in divinities. I call in, gods and goddesses that I really resonate with and ask for their help with my protection. You can call in angels. I work with dragons. You can ask your spirit guides. But once again, we have to develop that connection. The more that we're talking to them, the more we're connecting with those energies, the stronger that connection becomes. And then the more that those energies can do for us and with us. So, if we only call on, a lot of people use Archangel Michael as a good example, but if we only call on him, once in a blue moon when we're having a problem, that connection's not necessarily going to be really strong where he can step in and do a huge amount for us really quickly. So the more that we kind of have conversation with him and thank him for what he's done, or ask him to be with us throughout a day when we're not having big dilemmas, the more that energy is strengthened, and the more that he can do for us when we do really need it, and he can step in. So it's the same for all the divinities and the angels and our spirit guides. Just having, regular conversation with them is really important to help develop a connection. So certainly we can work with them as well, as well as things like our pyramid. So, and that's certainly something that I do as well myself. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, what I wanted to cover with you guys when it comes to grounding and protection. They're like my two big essential topics that I talk about in psychic development, in a lot of the witchcraft workshops. On so many levels, it really comes into play as an important thing for any spiritual person to really be thinking about and doing at a regular time each day, or at least do regularly. Um, so yeah, they're definitely the two really big, most important topics I would say that we should be doing regularly. So, does anyone have any questions around any of that for me? Oh, I can see there's comments I haven't been able to see. Thank you, guys. Beautiful. Oh, great. It's great to see there's some of you been commenting as well that you already use the pyramid and layering. Yes, the visualization is the pyramid. So you visualize that pyramid, you visualize yourself inside the pyramid, and or so like that. Although you don't have to be sitting like that, but literally, you could be standing in the pyramid or sitting in the pyramid. And you literally visualize that pyramid around you, and you can put it in whatever color it is that you want, or that you're feeling guided to, aside from the white or the green. No, you don't have to hang it as a symbol anywhere. It's just the visualization. So one of the really good things about this kind of protection is it doesn't require any tools. We can carry, there's crystals we can carry that will help with protection and things like that, but it doesn't require any tools. It's just simply our own our own visualization, our own intent, our own energy that will really help to energize it. No, there's not any specific prayer of intent that I would say. I tend to work more from the heart when I do things like that. So, anything that we say on that gratitude level, or just stopping and saying, please, can you help me? And working on that heart level, I find will be really effective as well. Uh, there's quite a few, or at least there is a couple of psychic protection books that are really good. Um, uh, Judy Hall was one that was really early on, but there's a Ted Andrews one that is really good. He's quite a thick book, and he's got quite a lot of psychic protection things that are in there. There's no books that I know of that really get just into grounding themselves, but there are a few books that are particularly for psychic protection, and Ted Andrews would probably be my number one pick when it comes to the psychic protection books. Ah, selenite is really great for stress relief. It's one that really kind of aligns all your chakras, and brings in a lot of centering and healing. So that's probably why you're reaching for selenite first. Um, it's because it's really going to align everything, and it'll help to shift some of that stress. So that's probably why you're feeling guided to selenite. Yeah, black tourmaline is one of the really good ones for grounding and also for protection. So if you're thinking about protection crystals that you might want to use in combination with the protection that we've talked about, black tourmaline or your black crystals are especially really good for protection, as well as for grounding. And then also you've got things like amethyst is a really great protection crystal as well, and lapis lazuli is another great protection crystal too. So yeah, black tourmaline is really great. Oh, thanks, Rayleigh, for answering questions too. Oh, that's awesome, Sandra. Yes, I've got chakra sprays as well that I've made. And I particularly, when I talk about chakras, I talk about that there being 10 major chakras rather than 7. And so I've made an Earth Star chakra spray, which is also really good for grounding if you want a kind of a quick go-to that you can use as well. So that would definitely be another option. Thanks, Sandra. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Lisa. There's a good recommendation of a book in there that talks a lot about grounding too. Beautiful. So definitely, grounding and protection is stuff that you want to be doing regularly for any of your spiritual work, guys. Can't recommend it enough. Does anyone else have any questions before I finish up with tonight? Oh, yep, I did mention the salt baths. Salt baths are a really great way to be able to ground as well. Thanks, Claire. And for anyone that missed some of tonight's session, I will make sure that when I finish it that it uploads into the group, so you'll be able to rewatch it again if you want to, um, or if you want to just be able to rewatch it again. Yep, smoky quartz is another good grounding crystal too. Yep, beautiful. Thanks, Michelle. All right, well, I might wrap it up there. I'm really glad. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me tonight. I hope that you have enjoyed our session and just discussing a bit more about grounding and protection. I know sometimes it's really good just to be reminded about some of those tools that we have and perhaps why we might do them as well. Because sometimes we just kind of get lost in, the day-to-day stuff, especially when we've constantly being bombarded on the news with lots of things to be worrying about and having to keep an eye on. So don't forget to get back into your grounding and into your protection, or to start doing them if it's not something you've been doing up until now. And it will really, it'll really help you guys on those stress and worry levels, and just taking care of yourself and your own energy.